I also just think from a bigger picture standpoint, 21 months ago, they were winning a playoff series.
Right.
And just think about what went into the entire thing going off the rails and the plummeting on the field, the payroll being slashed off the field, the lack of acquisitions, the now fire sale trading off 10 guys, the paying Houston $33 million to just take Carlos Correa, the ownership situation that's now been 10 months without a sale, basically. Like every step along the way over the course of 21 months, that playoff series win over Toronto, we were there. It feels like it was 50 years ago. Yeah. Like it almost doesn't even feel like it was like a dream, basically. Like every step along the way has been the unraveling of that vibe, of that sort of notion that something good has happened and we can build from this. And they've just brick by brick taken out until the whole thing is collapsing. And I think it's embarrassing. I think it's pathetic. I think it does all stem from ownership, but I think the front office is complicit to some regard, just in some of the decision making and some of the choices that they've made. I certainly think that the players are complicit in this. We've talked about endless hitters, especially where they just stop producing. And I certainly think Baldelli's complicit in it to some. I mean, there's no shortage of blame to be spread around here, and it's not a one size fits all. But I cannot get over the fact that 21 months ago, Target Field was rocking. There was a euphoria. There was a legitimate optimism on and off the field. They snapped a 2-decade losing streak. They had a young core of players. They seemingly had an ownership that for the first time in 3 generations was at least willing to spend at an average level. And they were signing Correa. They were re-signing. They were spending. They were extending Buxton. They were trading for and extending Lopez. And then the rug gets pulled out. The payroll gets slashed. Now all of a sudden Correa's taken up a quarter of the payroll. You can't do any deadline deals for the next 2 years. You don't do anything over the next 2 off seasons. You go into a stasis, really. The young core collapses. The vibes are wrecked. And then you end up at this point, at this trade deadline, less than 2 years later, and you're selling off half the team. You're paying people to take Carlos Correa. You're gutting the whole bullpen. You're trading away dudes who you could have built the bullpen around for the next 2, or in Varland's case, 5 years. And at the end of it, we're supposed to believe 2026, they're still going to compete. How? With this team, I don't even know was going to compete as is. Now you've gutted the whole bullpen. And we're supposed to believe in another retooling or resetting, as Falvey phrased that he very clearly tried to avoid saying a rebuild. And I see that, but I think there's more coming unless this team is sold. And I really have gotten to a point now where it just seems very dark and very helpless from a fan base perspective, except for one thing: if the team is sold. And short of that, I just don't see morale or the on-field product or the vibes or whatever it is dramatically improving anytime soon unless this thing is sold. And I've always felt that way. But after this trade deadline, I mean, there's no hiding from that fact. Is like, this is in a real bad place right now. I personally fear it's going to get even worse, not only on the field, but in terms of trading away assets. And the only thing that's going to stop that in my mind is if the poll ads are no longer involved. And
I think you did a nice job of kind of giving voice to the primary reaction to this, which is, this is the culmination of 2 years of making decisions that kneecapped a franchise that was on the rise. Right? This is the way this was going to go. Once the poll has decided to quit investing in a team that was on an upcycle, then invariably you stall, and invariably you start to go to a down cycle, and this is where the down cycle ends. Now, on the one hand, from a general manager standpoint or from a CEO of baseball operations standpoint, I respect them for being able to saying the Band-Aid is time to rip it off. This is in fact, we need to make some changes, and we don't necessarily need to blow up everything. We don't need to trade Joe Ryan for pennies on the dollar here or something, but we're gonna make some major changes. And in particular, the Correa trade is a recognition that this team is not in the cycle that they were from 2019 through 2023. They are in a different cycle right now, and they've got to find a different way to go forward. We talked a little bit about, we talked for the last 3 months. What do they do to shake up the core? Well, trading Correa is shaking up the core.
Yes, now, but here's the problem. They didn't bring in core hitters. They didn't bring in anybody.
Yeah, but you can't do that at a trade deadline sale thing. I mean,
I think that's BS. You trade Johan Duran, Griffin Jacks, and Louis Varland, and you bring in not a single hitter other than maybe Alan Rodin, who could be like an okay corner outfielder. They chose the players they chose. You cannot sit here and tell me they couldn't have gotten a 25-year-old hitter to plug into the lineup for Duran or Jackson. I'm not saying that would have been a better trade, but those avenues are open to them, and that's one of the problems I have with the just general idea, even before the trade deadline, of, well, what do you want the front office to do? They've been, like you said, kneecapped by the ownership. Well, yes, nobody has talked more about the kneecapping or the limitations or the degree of difficulty that trickles down from an ownership situation that is just absolute garbage and a slash payroll. But there are still decisions that the front office has made and could have made at this deadline and this offseason. They could have traded away core players before some of these guys have essentially died on the vine. They could have shaken up the core. They could have made decisions that did not require money. And they could have done that at this deadline too. Now, they chose the players they did, and that's fine. But I just have a hard time acting like this is just a retooling. Because what does 2026 look like?
And welcome to the end of this video. There's lots more. For another, just click on one of these boxes.
Or click on this circle in the middle to subscribe to all of our Twins Talk.
Thank you.
Gleeman